Paper 2 mock feedback, sweets, the reading questions. Here is a tiny URL for the mark scheme for this paper. We're going to start with question 4, which is the highest marks as you were instructed in the lesson. For this question, you need to refer to the whole of source A and the whole of source B and compare how the writers convey their different attitudes to sweets. In your answer, you could compare their different attitudes to sweets, compare the methods that they use to convey their attitudes, and support your response with references to the texts. 16 marks. So because it's about 4 marks per paragraph, because of the petal structure, you have to write about 4 things to make a good paragraph. You really should write 4 paragraphs, take 2 aspects of the text and compare A with B, and then compare a different aspect, A with B, and then you have your 4 paragraphs. Here is a top quality level 4 answer for question 4. In it, you need to compare ideas and perspectives perceptively, analyse how the writer's methods are used, select a lot of text, and have a detailed and perceptive understanding of the different ideas. So you really need to understand what the writer is saying, including any humour, which a lot of you missed. So in source A, the writer is unashamedly enthusiastic about sweets in his nostalgic return to childhood. So that's the first bit of your perceptive understanding. He has structured his detailed description of sweets to climax with the star lolly to reinforce the superiority of the Jaffa. The metaphor of star, with its connotations of fame and celebrity, links with the cinema setting, outshining whatever is showing on the screen. So that is analysing how the methods are used, the metaphor and star. James' sensual celebration of the sweets of his childhood contrasts with the more rational and scientific investigation of source B, in its account of how sweet eating in the past was potentially fatal for children due to the immoral practices of some manufacturers. So there he is comparing A and B, the nostalgia with the scientific approach of the second text. The use of the superlative most virulent poison conveys the writer's horror about the poisonous nature of sweets created in a villainous manner by manufacturers in the past. So that's how we're using the method there, is to make the previous manufacturers of poisonous sweets look villainous. This melodramatic description of sweet makers as criminals who have intentionally harmed children gives source B a moral crusading attitude to sweets as a product that children need protection from. The writer of source A is nostalgic as he recalls the sweets of his childhood cinema trips. Sweets are the most important part of the cinema experience, because most of his account is about them and not what he watched. He shows this by describing all the sweets in great detail, building up to what he regards as the star lolly of the Jaffa. By using the adjective star, he makes it clear that this is the main attraction of the sweet eating experience, the biggest name in the show. On the other hand, the writer in source B does not share this nostalgic attitude to past sweets, as in the past they were potentially life-threatening. He describes how these sweets contained the most virulent poison. His choice of the adjective virulent suggests how severe, even deadly, the effects of this poison may have been on children. He clearly disapproves of this old manufacturing process that resulted in children's deaths, and hopes that sweets can now be enjoyed safely. So the writer's feelings are made very clear. Although the comparison of the Jaffa with the dangerous sweets in the answers above is in the mark scheme, you can write about other things as long as you meet the standards. So you can write about the appearance and appeal of the sweets, consumption, acquisition, amount, nutritional value, interest, importance, and as a source of pride as well. So there isn't one right answer. Question 3. You now need to refer only to source A from lines 20 to 28. How does the writer use language to describe eating the fantail sweets? Well, let's start with the level 4 top grade answer, which is perceptive. You have to analyse the writer's choices of language in a perceptive manner. So you have to show a deep understanding to get the level 4. The writer uses the exaggeration of the adjective strangled to create a vivid image of children so determined to eat this sweet that they are allowing its glue-like texture to constrict their airways. The ironic use of strangled with connotations of torture and death to describe the innocent act of sweet eating creates a darkly comic image to exaggerate the fantail's chewiness. Many of you did not notice the humour in this piece of text, and that was a very important aspect. In this level 3 answer, that's grade 4 and above, the mark scheme acknowledges the technique used, which is an adjective strangled, but it doesn't so much acknowledge the fact that the tone is humorous, so that's why it's not a grade 4 answer. The writer uses the exaggeration of strangled crying to create an image of how much physical effort is needed to eat the fantail. The adjective strangled suggests that eating it involves suffering rather than the usual enjoyment, as the sweet is so sticky and chewy that the effort of chewing it is like being choked and killed, but the children keep going. Other things you may write about include visual details such as the blue packet, alliteration, assonance, chocolate-coated toffee, exaggeration, hyperbole, metaphors, irony or humour, as we said in the level 4 answer, juxtaposition, interesting word choices, glutinous, weird, and harsh vocabulary, chipped, chisel, strangled, lockjaw, to show the difficulty of eating the sweets. Question 2. You need to refer to source A and B for this question. Children at the cinema in source A and the children at the factory in source B have different experiences of childhood. Use details from both sources to write a summary of what you understand about the different experiences of the children. 8 marks. When you're reading the question, be really careful to outline, underline or highlight the most important parts of the question. The most important part of this question was that it was not about sweets, it was about the experiences of the children. So if you did not focus on the experiences of the children, you would not have got a good grade for this question. So again, for a top grade level 4 answer, you need to be perceptive. You need to really understand what the writer is saying. The children in source A have a wild, carefree experience of childhood. They're naturally and physically active as they raced up and down, with no real direction or purpose, enjoying the freedom of a complete lack of parental control and no obvious adult supervision. This is carefree and irresponsible experience is in complete contrast to source B, where the child factory workers do not have the same freedom or rights. Their childhood consists of being forced to earn money and being responsible for supporting themselves and their families. Their enforced stillness as they work sitting silently shows that they are physically and verbally restrained by the more powerful adult supervisor, conveying a depressing and subdued experience. So you really need to focus there on the experiences of the children and pick up on the complete difference in tone from slightly comical in source A to very serious and very depressing in source B. Here is a level 3, that's grade 4 and above, answer to this question. In source A, the children's experience of eating sweets at the cinema is enjoyable as they ate steadily or raced up and down. They seem to be able to eat and move as much as they like, so there is a sense of freedom about their experience as they do not appear to be supervised. This is very different to the factory girls whose experience is controlled so that they complete their work. In source B, the girls sitting silently have no freedom because they are monitored so closely. So it's really important to show the difference in the children's lives, the freedom in the first text and the complete lack of freedom and total control in the second text. Other things you can write about in this question include their surroundings, their enjoyment, their level of freedom, their finances, their level of supervision, their physical experience, their gender, And students may also mention other children in source B who may have been poisoned by toxic sweets, which of course would have been an experience of childhood. Here is question 1. You have to choose 4 correct answers out of 8 statements. So the cinema programme was every Saturday morning. No, it was in the afternoon. That's false. The cinema programme was short. False. The children all came from the same street. False. The children formed a large group as they moved through the streets. True. The Odeon was in Rockdale. True. The children wore shoes. No, they were barefoot. The children went to the cinema on foot. True. And the children had really tough feet. True. You should understand that in Australia and New Zealand, people quite often go barefoot just because they do. It's just a thing, and it doesn't mean that they're poor, which is what some of you put in your work. Here is a link using tiny URL to break it down for you if you want to type the link in to Mrs. Whelan's video on paper 2 question 4, sweets. It's about 7 minutes long, I believe, so we'll watch that separately, and that will help you understand how to deal with the longest question on this paper. These are the main findings from marking your reading work on the sweets paper. You need to compare perspectives when you're doing questions 2 and 4. Is it first person personal experience, third person factual, or what's the perspective? Is it the perspective from having been involved in the situation, or what's the perspective? Really important to understand that. Identify the question. Was it about sweets or the lives of children? Some of you got in a muddle with that, so make sure you outline or underline the important elements of the question. The tone, was it funny, sinister, depressing? How did it make you feel, and what was the writer trying to communicate? What were his feelings? Source A mentions a donkey and chipping open the children's mouths with a chisel. This is clearly humorous and not literal. Donkeys are always funny, so the tone should be clear to you. In the language question 3, state what effect the writer is aiming for, as well as the techniques that he uses. Do not say the writer uses language, as it is waffle. Do not say the writer helps us understand how the children felt, or similar, unless you go on to say how they felt using adjectives. Otherwise, it's waffle.